Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Arvind Fashions Limited Q4 FY21 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Ankit Arora, Head Investor Relations and Treasury, Arvind Fashions Limited. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Arora.
Thanks, Nirav. Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on Arvind Fashions Limited earnings conference call for the fourth quarter and fiscal year ended March 31st, 2021. I am joined here today by Kulin Lalbhai, Non-Executive Director, Shailesh Chaturvedi, Managing Director and CEO, and Pramod Gupta, Chief Financial Officer of Arvind Fashions Limited. Please note that results, press release and earnings presentation had been mailed across to you earlier, and these shall also be available on our website www.arvindfashions.com. I hope you had the opportunity to browse through the highlights of the performance. We'll commence the call today with Kulin providing his key thoughts about strategy and financial performance for the fourth quarter and fiscal year ended 31st March 2021. He shall be followed by Shailesh, who will share his thoughts and key priorities for us moving forward. At the end of management discussion, we'll have a Q&A session. Before we start, I would like to remind you that some of the statements made or discussed on this call may be forward-looking in nature and must be viewed in conjunction with risks and uncertainties we face. A detailed statement of these risks is available in this quarter's earnings presentation. The company does not undertake to update these forward-looking statements publicly. With that said, I would now turn the call over to Kulin to share his views. Thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Ankit. A very good evening to you all. Thank you for joining us for our Q4 results. We as a country seem to be coming out of the worst of the second COVID wave. But as all of us would agree, the last 2 months, especially May, have been exceptionally difficult. And we have been doing all that we can to protect the health of our employees and support them through the COVID emergency. We have tried our best to provide wholehearted support to our team in the fight against COVID, including tying up with medical institutions, enhanced financial assistance and insurance covers, tying up with hotels to provide facilities for our employees to self-quarantine, and taking special care of front-end retail employees with appropriate SOPs on working during the pandemic. Coming to the business performance, the strong momentum gathered in quarter 3 continued into quarter 4 as well. The business was able to post year-on-year growth of 14% comparable quarter last year. The EBITDA grew sharply by 98% due to the healthy recovery in sales and the various cost measures that have been carried out. This quarter witnessed a strong sales recovery channel of 100% with a marginal growth in like-for-like sales as well. The online channel continued on a rapid growth trajectory with a 390% growth over last year. We remained cautious on our wholesale channel due to the COVID uncertainties and achieved 60% of our pre-COVID level billing. This decision will ensure that the inventory levels in the channel are healthy as we come out of the second COVID wave. Let me share some segment level highlights. Our power brand portfolio performed very well. US Polo achieved high growth of 25% and a very healthy mid-double-digit EBITDA for the quarter. The 2 new category extensions of innerwear and footwear saw quarter-on-quarter growth of 30% and 102% respectively. Both categories are emerging as winners. Tommy and CK both grew revenues in excess of 25% in quarter 4 with a double-digit like-for-like growth in sales, as well as more than 100% growth in online revenue in the quarter. FM continued its rapid online growth by doubling the online business on a large base. While Power Brand saw a strong improvement in profitability versus the quarter 4 of last year, the margins were impacted by lower wholesale billing, a slower recovery in the department store channel, and the COVID impact in the second half of March. With the increased investments behind the Power Brands, an improvement in the cost structure and a healthy inventory position, we are confident of reaching pre-Ind AS double-digit profitability in the Power Brand portfolio as soon as the business normalcy returns. Quarter 4 is a historically weak quarter for our specialty retail business. However, with the cost corrections and the business model improvements in Unlimited, the quarterly EBITDA loss was 80% lower as compared to pre-COVID levels. Sephora had a very strong quarter, with our retail sales recovering to 114% levels and our online sales contributing to greater than 10% of the revenue. One of the areas that did not go as per our expectations was the wind down of businesses that we are exiting. We have seen higher exit costs on both inventory and store closure, and a delay in the Gap exit, leading to higher operational losses. While all the brands other than Gap will cease to impact the numbers in FY22, the Gap resolution should be completed in the H1 of the current fiscal. Over the years, the company has made big investments on the digital side. This includes our proprietary in-house omni-channel tech stack, deep talent and expertise in managing a direct-to-consumer digital business, and a product offering that has been specifically made for the online channel. These efforts have helped us achieve digital revenues of 700 crores, which accounted for more than 30% of our total revenues in FY21. While the percentage contribution of online revenues will come down once the offline business fully recovers, we expect a large growth in absolute revenues in this channel in the years to come. Our direct-to-consumer part of digital, which includes Now.com and our marketplace model, grew 3.5 times and now comprises of 35% of the total online business. Over time, we see the share of the direct-to-consumer business to grow, which is strategically important as the DTC business allows a full control over the brand experience online. We have fully integrated our retail network with Now.com and the third-party marketplaces. A substantial part of our offline revenues were contributed by online fulfillment, and we see this share growing over time. These omni-channel linkages will help us increase store productivity and also improve sell-throughs and inventory turns. The improvement in working capital continued with a reduction of 67 crores in gross working capital compared to December 20. Overall, during FY21, gross working capital has seen a reduction of 523 crores. As we enter FY22 with a much lower level of inventory, the fresh inwards will significantly enhance our freshness and support business growth and better productivity. The sharp reduction of gross working capital and the large infusion of equity have allowed us to reduce our net debt by 300 crores during the year. The net debt at the end of FY21 stands at 943 crores. FY21 was one of the most difficult years in the company's history. However, in spite of many challenges, we have been able to carry out many strategic resets, which have made us stronger. From a low point of quarter 1, when revenues fell to 12%, the business was able to quickly recover to 114% by quarter 4. The strong digital pivot saw the digital business moving from 14% of FY20 sales to more than 30% of FY21 sales, and ensured that our brands remained top of mind to our customers even when they could not shop in stores. We substantially cut down on inventory and brought it down by around 400 crores. Having completed this one-time correction, we have put in place the processes and systems to ensure that working capital turns will substantially improve in the years to come. While the business saw very large cash losses in H1 of FY21, the company raised a total of 860 crores of equity so that we were able to bring down net debt at 300 crores, in addition to funding the large levels of COVID-led losses. In response to COVID, we reduced our overall cost by 540 crores, which is a 40% reduction on the total cost base. We expect a more than 100 crore of structural fixed cost reduction, which will benefit the business in the years to come. With the portfolio rationalization and the strong focus on 6 high-conviction brands, once the COVID second wave abates, we expect the bottom line to significantly improve due to the exit of loss-making brands and operating leverage kicking in the power brands. I would like to now hand it over to Shailesh Chaturvedi to talk about the current COVID-related challenges and how he sees the opportunity moving forward.
Thanks, Kulin. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shailesh Chaturvedi here. I hope you are all safe and healthy in these COVID wave 2 times. Clearly, our main focus currently in this round of second wave is safety of our employees and towards vaccination of our team. So 3 days back, we had our first on-site vaccination camp at our Bangalore office, where nearly slightly more than 800 colleagues and even our business associates here and partners and vendors got vaccinated. And we are now trying to conduct more camps across India. We are also in touch with malls and the department stores to prioritize vaccination of front-end staff, which is going to be very key as we revive the business. The current wave started impacting the business from the second half of March. While most stores operated in the first half of April, the western region, Maharashtra, began shutting down somewhere around mid-April. And by the end of April, most of the network was shut down. Month of May has been the severest. It has seen the severest impact, with almost the entire offline channel being in a lockdown and even online deliveries being barred in large parts of the country. The first week of June has seen many states unlocking, with high street stores opening up with limited timing, currently this constraint. We expect a gradual opening up of the network over the next 4 to 5 weeks. We hope that with the acceleration of vaccination programs, consumers' sentiments should improve steadily. And one area which has been really strong in all this compared to the last COVID wave has been the online channel, as Kulin explained earlier in this call. We saw good pickup in online deliveries in May month also. With uncertainty regarding the pace of the recovery, we have proactively taken required steps to cut costs and balance our inventory in this COVID wave 2. With the first round of unlock being seen in June month, I'm really excited about the opportunities before us. Our 6 high conviction brands are leaders in their respective segments, and we have clear plans on how to scale them up profitably, and we are busy building our capabilities to execute our plans smartly. One good thing about our portfolio is that they have that right work from home appeal, and even in the COVID times when the recovery happens, our brands bounce back very strongly the way we saw in the H2 of last year. US Polo is our largest and the most profitable brand. The key focus for us in US Polo is to scale up the offline network also, including in smaller tier towns. Strengthen our new categories like winter wear, kids wear, innerwear, footwear, and further cement US Polo's position as a leading brand in the both online as well as offline channel. I've been working nearly 15 years with Tommy Hilfiger, and in this JV of Tommy and CK, I've seen how strong these global power brands are in India. In H2 last year, both brands Tommy and CK doubled their EBITDA. We will continue to strengthen their leadership aggressively with growth in online channel, accessorization of product categories in both the brands, and will increase the local production to improve margins in these businesses. We are also very, very excited to scale up Flying Machine plans as the online first youth-focused brand with introduction of new categories in the online channel, such as women's wear, footwear, and accessories in our partnership with Flipkart Group. In addition to online push, we are also rapidly scaling Flying Machine into smaller towns through its unique model called FMX. It's a model meant for small towns. This move into small town India is likely to open a very large market for Flying Machine. Arrow has been going through a full re-energizing with a new brand ambassador, Hrithik Roshan. It has a completely revamped product offering, especially on the smart casual and the youth segment, right for work from home environment. Arrow has a new store identity and has a full cleanup on the inventory. Market is hungry for Arrow. With the new season launch in Autumn Winter 21, we are confident of significant improvement in scale, sale and productivity at Arrow, and we hope to achieve a positive EBITDA in the second half of FY22. Sephora is continuing to see very strong offline recovery with many exciting new brand launches which are unique to Sephora and improvements we are making in our customer shopping experience. We expect a strong improvement in store productivity once the market normalizes. Our online business is also gaining momentum in Sephora, and we hope to significantly ramp up our online offering in the quarters to come. The planned journey in the Unlimited business on cost rationalization and on inventory optimization has been carried out fully, resulting in a much sharper cost structure and much lower inventory levels. This has ensured that losses are contained and we are much closer to achieve a break-even in this business as well. The key priorities for us in the current financial year include: 1, significant expansion of our retail network by opening 150 plus stores throughout the country through the franchisee route. Second, digital scale-up powered by category and brand extension, marketplace and now.com ramp-up, and further omni-channel linkages and strong relationship with the online portals. Third, strong control on inventory, which will allow us to significantly scale up revenues with minimal increase in working capital. Fourth, rapid growth in new categories like innerwear, footwear, and kidswear. Fifth, strong push in sell-throughs and productivity in the retail channel through better buying, better planning, and visual merchandising. And finally, 6 point, continued focus on cost management, so much required in these times. We are also strengthening some of our key capabilities in the team so that we can better execute our strategic plans. We are building a centralized sales function for the first time to get economies of scale across our brands, and we have hired a new chief revenue officer who has joined us recently. This common sales structure will allow us to improve our market coverage and also give us efficiencies. We are also parallelly strengthening our supply chain function, which we want to transform, and have hired a new supply chain head with a mandate to improve inventory velocity across the entire system and thereby improve tons, which are very important. We have also brought in many senior industry leaders in the last 3 months across our brands who have deep expertise in our domain, our industry domain, so that we can work towards energizing each of our 6 high conviction bets towards a strategy of profitable growth. We have bold plans, friends, and I feel confident that with our strong, uniquely strong portfolio of brands and a very capable and energized team, we will be able to steer Arvind Fashion Limited towards a very exciting future. Thank you.
So shall we open the floor for questions?
Yes, Nirav, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask the question. The first question is from the line of Nishit from CWC. Please go ahead.
Hi guys, thanks a lot for taking my question. My first question is actually on the balance sheet side. It's good to see that the turns in the second half, specifically both on the inventory and debtor side, showed a good traction. And from whatever you're saying, it looks like there is still some room for improvement. So would love to understand, how should we think about inventory turns, right? We are already, right, inventory and both actually debtors. How should we think about it? What is the normalized levels and what are the key drivers which will take us there? And I have a few more items. I'll ask them after this.
Hi, Shailesh here. As far as the inventory turns are concerned, it's like a top priority for us going forward. As we, gain our scale, both post-COVID in terms of NSV and EBITDA, the key priorities is how to improve our stock turns. Now, during COVID times, the whole business slows down and inventory lies in the closed stores or in the warehouse. So it slows down the turn. But, what we have done is that we've gone, last year you see our GWC reduction of 523 crores. We've gone hammer and tong in terms of reduction in inventory. Also, we have tightened our processes on buying, and made sure that, there is a lot of discipline on that. Also, I briefly just mentioned to that we want to start a transformation project on the supply chain, and we've hired a sort of a domain expert who is coming with a mandate to increase the stock turn. So, the whole idea is to improve stock turns and move towards a model which is more demand driven than forecast and push model driven the way the industry has worked in the past. So there's a lot of focus going forward to improve the stock turn, and we are making sure that the discipline on inventory, discipline on the processes, and also the new expertise on supply chain that we are trying to achieve to reach much higher level of stock turns than we have. Also, one thing that is sort of going to enable us is that our inventory levels are quite low as such right now, and there's a need for fresh goods, and typically fresh goods tend to move faster and give you a better margin also. So I think the way our inventory position is today, once the COVID sort of subsides and we move forward, I expect to have very good velocity on movement of goods in our business.
So Shailesh, if I understand it right, our inventory, which is roughly around 100 odd days plus or minus something, you are saying that turns could come down and the gross margins could going forward could also see better improvement because of higher fresh price, full price sales. Is that understanding correct?
So let me break down your question into two parts. One is about the turns and other is about the gross margin, right? So as far as the stock turns are concerned, like I said earlier, that there is a lot of emphasis to increase the stock turns. So there's no way we would want stock turns to come down. There's a good opportunity for us to increase the stock turns going forward, and it's a very important mandate for us, and that's our key focus area. Second part is gross margin. So like I said earlier, that inventory levels are now at historical low. Of course, currently COVID is again hitting us, but once we come out of the COVID, we are expecting, and this work from home, our brands are very well placed. Our inventory levels are quite low. As we start filling in the channel again in a few months again, gross margins would kick in at a higher level because gross margin have a direct correlation with the freshness of the inventory. And as we pump in more fresh merchandise into the market, into different channels, we expect our gross margin to be at a very healthy level.
Great. The second question is on the digital sales. So you said around 700 crores was our total digital sales, and of that 30% was roughly your direct-to-consumer sales, which is both marketplace and now.com, right? So I have two questions here. Question number one that I want to understand is are our terms of trade is it similar for a better or worse off in terms of our digital sales? Like, do you get better margins, better terms, or is it similar margins, or is it slightly lower? And the second question is with respect to both now.com, are we losing money there, and marketplace model? If you could just explain what exactly are we doing there in that marketplace model. These are three questions with respect to digital.
So again, let me go one by one. So online revenue last year of 705 crores, 32% growing 30%. So these are all very good numbers for us to take into the next year. We are proud of the scale we have risen its market leading position. That also helps us to get good margin because we are a very large player in this segment, and we have not just one model, we have multiple models from our own DTC now.com to our own marketplace, and also we have a very good business relationship with the large portals where we do large business with them also on online business. So our margins, online business is not deductive, it is additive. Its margins are as good as many other channels. Also, we have a very specific plan to improve the margins in the online business this year. What happens typically is that we tend to bring in old goods and sell it to them at a certain margin in the online play. But the focus now is shifting to what is known as SMU. These are specially made merchandise units which are like online for online. So what happens is that we use the consumer analytics of the online players, including our own now.com, and we design special SMU products which are right for this online world at full price, not a discount business. So we use the consumer insights of the online world, and we use our own brand and the product design strength to, it's like a good marriage between the two. So it comes out as a SMU where our margins are very good. And this year, the biggest focus is SMU drive. So this is a full price business where very decent, healthy margins for us, and we want to push that business. Our brands are very strong, have a right appeal in the post-COVID world, and we want to use this appeal in the online world to further improve our margin, which are anyway healthy, but they can go up further through this drive of SMU line that we are talking about. The next question, I think you discussed now.
And the turns. Sorry, Shailesh, sorry to interrupt, but turns on the online business, are they similar or better, or are they slightly worse?
Online turns are very good. For example, what I just mentioned, SMU, it's made to order immediately. We ship out, get our money in, so extremely fast turns. Also, we have unique manufacturing processes like flexi production, where we can do small runs on a very flexible manufacturing where there's no inventory. Immediately low depth goods get shipped out to the portals or sold through now.com. So it's a very fast turn business. So overall, online is a faster turn than average. So it's a better from a cash conversion and the stock turn basis. Online is a very fast business. Coming to now has reached a good scale. It's reaching the most important metrics is the positive unit matrices, and it's reached that level. We're breaking even on that. Still remains a area of investment for us. We will continue to invest behind the whole experience of now, and we will support it through more and more differentiated merchandise as we go along. So now is that story. And the last question I think you asked was on the marketplaces. So we have built large capabilities in last 1 year. COVID hastened and sort of made us do it even faster. So we have built large number of warehouses which are fully equipped to do B2C billing, and we have 5 odd warehouses right now, and we are looking at further strengthening that capability so that we can service marketplace orders closer to the demand, faster, probably at a lower logistics cost. So marketplace is a business which has really grown significantly. We do, as you rightly pointed out, 35% from BTC, but that percentage is going to increase as we go along. And it's very important because it gives us a chance to influence the consumer experience online world in a very direct way. And that remains our focus going forward.
Thanks a lot. And just last question from my side, this 400 crore enabling resolution, can you just throw some more light on that as to, how are we thinking about it? Because, at these prices to dilute any further will be like really very painful for investors like us.
Yeah, let me take that question. Kulin here. See, we have gone ahead and done an enabling resolution, and we intend to have this as a rotating enabling resolution, which we are going to do every year. We believe that in any uncertain environment like the one we live in, having a resolution in place is a good idea. As before, we have always maintained that we will be proactive in ensuring that the business never has any want of capital. But at the same time, I'd also like to share that as of now, there is no immediate fundraise plan in front of the board. But we felt that just looking at the uncertainties that we are facing with COVID wave, it is important to have the flexibility and have the resolution in place.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is from the line of Sagar Parekh from One Up Financial Solutions. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir, and congratulations on decent performance. So firstly, on how should we look at the debt for FY22 net debt figure? So I believe we are at about 920 odd level for March 2021. And secondly, if I look at your FY21 cash flow, your interest cost is about 249 crores that we have paid during FY21. If I even average out the total debt of for the year FY21, it would be approximately about 1,000 to 1,100 crores on an average. So I'm not able to reconcile. So basically, are we saying that the interest cost for the year was at 25%?
Pramod, do you want to?
Yeah. So this 225 crore of interest cost includes Ind AS 116 interest on the lease liabilities. So
no, the cash flow. I'm just looking at the cash flow statement, which says the interest cost is about 249 crores.
Yeah. So that interest cost let's break down the interest cost between two components.
Okay.
One is the interest on borrowings, and then the other one is the interest on the lease liabilities, which is under Ind AS. That long-term leases are capitalized, etc. So you back out 72 crore out of the 225 crore. That leaves us with 153 crore. That 153 crore, while our year-end, borrowings are, 900, a little over 900 crore. We started the year with much larger borrowing, and before the fundraise in the month of July, the borrowing unfortunately went up further. And also during the first quarter, during COVID period, in order to bring in, certain amount of liquidity and keep the operations going, we also had to incur certain higher interest costs. So therefore, one is to look at the year-end level, and other is to look at the year beginning and the build-up of the borrowing that happened, before the fundraise happened, and our debt levels could come down.
Sure. So actual cash interest cost is about 150 odd crores, as you're saying, right?
153. I think
153. So right. So that also is about 15 odd % kind of, even 1,000 crores, assuming average interest cost for the year.
No. So therefore, we started the year with 1,250 crores.
Right.
And then and that went up a little bit, in the until the month of July.
Right.
So we do have a higher level of interest in the first 4 months of the year, and then it sort of gradually came down.
One way of looking at it, Pramod, could be to see the run rate of the quarter 4 interest.
Sorry, run rate of?
Quarter 4 interest.
Yeah.
Right. And how should we look at the debt levels for FY22?
Kulin, you will answer or?
No, go ahead, Pramod.
Okay. So FY22, we should be looking at approximately similar level of debt levels as the end of March 21. Should not be a significant difference as compared to the FY21 level.
Oh, so debt will not go down. I was expecting the debt number to go down because you will have some rights issue money coming in, and plus assuming the cash flow for the year would be positive now, given the fact that demand is likely to bounce back once the.
If I can come in here, let me take this one. See, there are two things. One, we are expecting a very, very significant ramp up in revenue between what we achieved last year and what is kind of the business plan for this year. So it is a disruptively higher growth rate on a base because the business is scaling back after a COVID disturbance. But in spite of that, the working capital will not dramatically go up. It would go up somewhat. Secondly, there are some COVID uncertainties, at least in the first quarter, which are going to impact the business, and we'll see how the COVID unlock happens and how quickly we move back. But because of those, it is on the conservative side. I think we believe that the debt level should be similar.
Okay, and on the interest cost, given the fact that now this 153 number should come down, right? Because I believe 153, since you mentioned that it was 1250 at the start of the year and then we had some additional debt, so that's why the interest cost is on a higher side. But this Q4 interest cost number should be, can I multiply that by 4 to get the interest cost for the year, for FY20?
Broadly, yes.
Okay, and how much was the interest cost for Q4 then, excluding the lease liabilities?
I think it was around 35.
Okay, so about 70 and another 7. So 140 crores should be the number then.
Yeah, you should be able to think about that.
Okay, sure. That's it from my side, and all the best, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Priyam Khemawat from Infinity Alternatives. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi team. So just looking at the numbers, we've done
Sorry to interrupt you. Say your voice
Hello?
is coming. Voice is not coming clear. Can you come in a better reception area, please?
Hello, is it better now?
Much better, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so just looking at the presentation, we've done around 64% recovery for our power brands. So assuming that we reached around 2,500 crore revenue mark for our power brands, we earlier used to do around 10% pre-index EBITDA margin. So assuming that we reach that maybe in second half this year or next year F23, what kind of EBITDA margin are we looking at? Will it be substantively higher considering the cost reduction which we've done, or will it be in the similar range? Just wanted to understand that from you.
Hi, Shailesh here. We looked at this year into two parts, H1, H2. So we are starting, unfortunately, with a COVID wave 2. This first quarter will get impacted. We also have some final cleanup on the gap business that will get cleaned up in the H1. H2, we expect the EBITDA to sort of bounce back in that proportion. Well, power brands are already delivering good EBITDA. Even in the last quarter, if you see, the power brand EBITDA is fairly good, more middle double digit, and it should continue its improvement journey as we bring in more and more fresh goods, where the margins are quite good for us. So as we grow the digital business, as our cost efficiency kick in, more fresh inventories go into the market, the EBITDA margin should be better.
No, just to put my question in another way, like we've done around 500 crore plus savings in cost this year. So how much of that do you think is sustainable? Because at the start of the year, we were telling that around 150-200 crore of the cost reduction is sustainable on an annual basis. So just wanted to understand that.
See, if I really see the cost elements, so there were rental saving, there was a supply chain saving, there was manpower cost saving. So definitely there's a 100 crore plus kind of saving is structural and it will go forward. Some of the costs as we scale up the business significantly, hopefully in the second half of the year will come back. So the rents will not remain at concession. If the business bounces back, that rent will go back to its contractual amount. Little bit of employee also will have to hire to support the growth. So we definitely a significant portion of the cost saving is structural and it will accrue and will go forward. Whereas some will need to sort of add back the cost. So I don't know whether it answers your question.
Okay, understood. Fair enough. So, and just another question. Our F20 rentals were around 400 crore actual rentals without this Ind AS impact. What kind of concessions were we able to get this year, and what is our actual rental outflow to landlords this year? If you could just help me with that number.
So, there are two forces happening right now because that will make it difficult to put a number to the rental right now, because the first quarter COVID impact, our discussions are in progress with our partners, landlords. We've already written letters to them seeking help, and it'll get resolved soon, but we don't know the exact number. We can't comment on that. Something is not certain as yet. Second part is also that there is a plan for growing the business to the franchisee network. So there is a possibility that we will convert some own stores to franchisee stores, and as we ramp up the business forward. So I'm unable to put a number to the rental for this year as
yes, sorry sir, so that is understood for F22. I was just trying to understand from F20 to F21, which is the last year which we've done. F21, what was our actual rental outgo?
Okay. I don't have that. Pramod, would you have that? Or
can you?
We'll take back this question and come back to you. Ankit will come back to you with the number.
Okay, thanks.
Ankit, that's fine, right? Yes. Prem, I'll come back to you on this.
Sure, Ankit. I'll get back. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhruv Shah from Ambika FinCap. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi team. Congratulations on a decent Q4 performance. I just have two broad questions on two of your brands. One is Sephora. How do you plan to ramp up now? Because seeing your competitor doing really good growth, what are your plans in Sephora going ahead?
Sephora is a brand which is really known for its shopping experience, and we saw in the month of January and February this year, Sephora recovered the past year business the fastest. So there is a very strong consumer pull for this brand, and we expect that the post-COVID Sephora will continue to grow rapidly. We are, upgrading the shopping experience even further. They are very good already, and Sephora is a leading brand in most malls. So we want to up the game further. Second thing we want to do is that we have a very strong line of launches of exclusive brands, and that's very important in the this beauty segment. So there's there are 5, 6 very, very strong mega brands which are in the pipeline. In fact, 1 or 2 we had to delay by a couple of months because of the current COVID wave. But that exclusive pipeline of these power brands in the beauty segment will help Sephora further. Also, we will explore whatever the possibility of expand the geography of the Sephora business in India as we go along. And lastly, online is very important. We have seen a good traction with Sephora in our own marketplace and in our own now.com business. And we started it recently, and in a very quick manner, it has crossed the double-digit contribution for Sephora. So this online journey will continue to grow, and it will help the Sephora business to grow. So the excitement at the store, launch of exclusive brands, online linkages, and the growth that we are planning, all these will take the Sephora business forward.
Right. Thank you. And my next question is on Unlimited. Are we planning to close any further stores, or are we done with the realignment, restructuring, and now onwards this year you will see a break even, and from next year probably you will see some EBITDA positive? Word on Unlimited, please.
So, there was a big drive to rationalize the business. We closed down a large number of not so profitable stores. So at the current distribution network is quite healthy. Unfortunately, currently COVID is impacting in the pure retail with online linkages. It's impacting more. But as we come out of the COVID, I think Unlimited is a very cost-efficient model. The last year, the new model of Saral stores that was done is very successful. Also, Unlimited has built its private brand expertise further, and also it's built its online and the omni capability further in the last 6 months. So Unlimited is in a very healthy and efficient way. That's why you'll see in the last quarter also its losses were 1/3 of the same quarter last time. So it's a fairly efficient stage in the times when normalcy returns, and we expect the Unlimited to be sort of close to break even in the normal times. Currently, COVID is impacting most businesses, but as we talk about normal times, Unlimited has reached a fairly good degree of efficiency.
So let me put it across like that, Shailesh, that when Kulin says that there is a ramp up, so whatever ramp up you're saying, is Unlimited a part of that, or you just have focus on 6 brands and Unlimited is not part of your ramping up plan?
So what we do is that we do one step at a time. In Unlimited, our focus was to restructure the cost base so that we don't lose money and it reaches its break even. And I must say that Unlimited, the new team did a great job of very rapidly bringing the cost efficiencies, cutting down store, getting the Saral model, getting the capabilities on online, omni, new tabletops, the new pricing. So they've done a good job of that messaging. We just want to continue for few more quarters in that phase where we want to make sure, also COVID is not helping right now, but we want to be 100% sure that these efficiencies that we have already got and we saw in the Q4 much sharply reduced losses, it stays, and we want that to see that these are sustainable, and then we will figure out our next stage of the Unlimited business.
Right. Thank you so much, and all the best for the future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Chetan Palke from Alpha Invesco Research. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, I'll just continue with the last question. I think out of total capital employed, close to 400 crores is in our Unlimited business. So how do we, ensure that we get to a reasonably okay return on capital employed going forward over there? Can you just elaborate how we can get there, because we haven't been there in last 3-4 years per se.
I just want to reconfirm the capital employed number, and our CFO Pramod can just comment on that, then I'll take the answer forward.
I think capital employed should actually be much lower. I would separately like to understand from you as to how the 400 crore number has been arrived at. Because if we were to look at the inventory, and the inventory includes a fair amount of partner brands, which are like we account for them as inventory in our books, but there are corresponding creditors, and we have to pay only on the basis of the secondary sales. So therefore, you might be looking at only the gross and not the net.
Let me just add to what Pramod is saying. In my view, the capital employed is a much lower number.
Okay. Is it less than?
Anyway, let's come to the question.
Any ballpark number that I can?
We can separately reconcile the number, but it will be significantly lower than 400.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Sir, do you have any follow-up question?
Yeah. So, I mean, how do we, what is the roadmap going forward for Unlimited? I mean, recently there were some news reports that we might just find a buyer for this division and it might be disposed of to someone. Is there anything like that on cards, or are we looking to turn around the business on our own and go to a 20-odd% kind of a return on this business?
Let me come in here. This is Kulin here. I think what we have clearly maintained is that as far as we are concerned, we want to invest our capital behind the 6 brands. Our Unlimited business, we wanted to get to a milestone of achieving 15% store profitability. And side by side, as Shailesh mentioned, it is becoming quite a large profitable online business. Having achieved these 2 milestones, on the first milestone, I think we are still perhaps 6 months away. Second milestone of scaling up digital through the private label online route is going quite well. But once we have achieved these milestones, the idea should be how do we create long-term value, and we are not looking to put capital employed behind growth in this business. So we are looking at all the different ways in which we can ensure that the platform which we have created, which is now a good, large, reasonably scaled and omni-channel platform, how we can realize the right value and the next steps in terms of unlocking something out of this. So we don't have a specific update we can share at the moment, except to say that we have made the business we have brought it to a level which is healthy. We'll continue to improve its profitability and scale it online with the existing network. And we'll parallelly look at ways in which we can solve the issue around not putting capital behind it to scale it up ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So, one more question. I mean, our inventory correction in Arrow is fully complete now, and can we see fresh inventory spillovers given that our retail side is closed since last couple of months?
Yeah, in fact, the inventory correction has been the sharpest in Arrow, and in fact, there is a shortage of inventory right now as we speak, and as the market improves post-COVID, we plan to fill in the channels very soon in Arrow, and we're hoping that the second half of this financial year, Arrow should be an EBITDA positive brand.
Okay. Yeah. So can we see fresh inventory spillovers in our other brands, let's say in Polo, in Flying Machine, in other brands, because the retail side is closed?
So, what has happened is that we've seen last year also some best practices that we will carry to this COVID wave 2. So inventory correction is important because we don't want the turns to slow down or the freshness to go down. So we have cut down increase by couple of 100 crores in this round of COVID, and sort of made sure that both on cost side and also on the inventory side, we remain quite sharp in order to fight this COVID wave. So while we have cut down the inventory, but we will have adequate fresh and adequate volume of inventory to supply to the market as the market picks up.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the second half is full of season. So, Diwali this year also is 10 days earlier. So we expect Puja, Diwali season to start at least a fortnight earlier than last year. And that also would ensure that the channel, etc., starts picking up goods faster. And we also had a very low level of inventory with the trade channel. We've been very cautious about that channel. So my sense is that channel is also hungry. Just that currently because of COVID, everybody is cautious. But once the market picks up, we should be able to apply a very large amount of fresh inwards in most of our goods, most of our brands, all of our brands, including surely US Polo, which is our biggest brand in the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Shailesh sir, I think you were mentioning about improving our supply chain drastically and improving our stock turns. So can you elaborate more, as in what are the aspirational stock turns that we are looking at, let's say 3-4 years down the line for our power brands?
So, frankly, for this financial at an aggregate level, at an AFL level, power brands would be even better. We were looking at, closer to 2.5 tons and, somewhere in that zone between 2.25 and 2.5. And that's our first journey, which should be able to achieve that tons. And then the journey is to take that number even higher. So the process is starting as we speak today. We have made huge progress in terms of inventory reduction, buying control, new discipline on our processes, sell-through rigor in the company. And with the new project that I mentioned, that there is a whole mandate to push the stock turn agenda forward. And I'm sure our power brands will even excel the numbers that I just sort of gave a hint about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any global benchmarks, I mean, for the asset turn, for the stock turns? I mean, our Indian market is vastly different than the other markets, so we can't really get there. Any comments on that side?
Yeah, I mean, we have, we know the best practices in this industry, but I think the way we should look at it is that we have our own reality and we want to improve on that reality, and we want to do it fast. So our game is what we did last year and how do we improve it rapidly going forward.
If I can just come in here, Shailesh, to add, one thing that is happening in this business is that, the earlier benchmarks around excellence have been built more around the velocities and turns of largely a physical business. And the reality of the world is that we are moving more and more to a digital-centric business. And as Shailesh was explaining earlier, digital is no longer the factory outlet of the physical. We are actually creating both an offering and a supply chain separately for the online channel. And this supply chain can be very, very real time, because unlike offline, where products are spread across a lot of retail stores and there is a certain speed at which product can move from the production hub to the warehouse to the store, in digital, it is very, very disruptive. So I think the old benchmarks should not be taken. I think as we build more and more of a high velocity digital-centric model, we should keep pushing the paradigm on how, inventory turns can keep going up. And I think the omni world will change some of the older paradigms.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll give you one example to just take forward from Kulin what he said. Look at the omni linkages, right? A lot of our stores, including in power brands, are linked with the online world, and there is a large percentage of growth in the store channel is coming from the omni fulfillment. So that's another disruptive way of increasing your sell-through and the stock movement in the physical store through the omni linkages, and that it's a completely a new sort of linkage and capability in our industry, and it'll all help us to increase the sell-through and the momentum of our product.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Harish. Just one last question for Kulin, if I can put that forward.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So which brands, apart from Gap, wherein we are facing exit issues, and what kind of capital employed will get free once we exit all these brands?
Yeah, so, we exited quite a few brands over the time, right from Nautica, Gant, we had some online-focused private labels that we had built earlier, Rough and Tough, Newport. These were all the brands we exited, and we had broadly indicated that this discontinued brands would release a little over 150 crores of capital employed. I believe a little under half of that has been realized. Whatever is left is largely in Gap, which, as we mentioned earlier, in H1 of this year, we should have a resolution on that as well.
Okay. And Kulin, with respect to Sephora, what kind of sales we can achieve, let's say, in 5 years? And how is the industry positioned? How are we placed compared to Nykaa? Because I think Nykaa is also coming up with IPO. Can you just give us a brief on how the industry is placed going forward?
Sure. See, one thing that I'd like to share is that Sephora is a prestige business. The average ASPs are north of 2,000 rupees, so it's in a sense a little bit of a more premium luxury format. So there is some correlation between the price points and the kind of distribution and scale that can be achieved. I don't mean to say that the opportunity is not exciting. In fact, it's very exciting because today we have seen that wherever we place Sephora, it has the highest productivity in any mall of any concept. So the sweet spot of that premium customer, that prestige customer, that fit is perfect with Sephora. I think whilst India will be today able to possibly absorb, somewhere in the single digit, mid to high single digit number of stores every year, because, this format goes to the slightly more affluent malls and the premium locations. I personally feel that as the per capita income goes up over the years, I think the number of stores India will be able to support will keep significantly going up. It's a little difficult to predict the curve there, but it's very clear that, the number of cities that can support the Sephora price points will keep growing, and there is premium malls coming in. So that's the answer on the offline side. I think the disruptive opportunity is on the online side. And, in the past, our online offering was first a function of the size of stores which we had. What we have done since the last year is to, again, like we have done in apparel, look at online for online. And what that means is we can definitely enhance the offering in digital. The price points obviously cannot go to a mass pricing because that is not Sephora. But there are so many exciting global brands that Sephora has, exclusive brands, which have not yet come in India. So over the next 18 months, we have a very exciting calendar, and broadly the offering is going to double. So in online, a lot of the sales scale up is directly proportional to how the offering goes up. And beyond that, of course, we will be investing more in customer acquisition, more cosmetics-based feature sets. Sephora is very strong in its global management on digital. We are working with them to bring a lot of those best practices and knowledge to India. So I think today it's very difficult to plot out exactly how the hockey stick of digital will go. But I think we will be focused enough that we really expand and scale up the digital, and the offline will be a function of, the mall supply that comes in India. Both put together, I don't see a world where Sephora will not become a large force to reckon with, for the simple reason that the beauty of Sephora is that 60% of the offering is exclusive. It's unique. between Sephora private label and all of these exciting brands. And because it's globally a 15 billion euro format, it creates some of the coolest cosmetic brands in the world. So that engine of new brands, which will keep coming in, will come into India through Sephora. So I think structurally, opportunity very exciting. And we are doing what it takes to start amping up, the digital opportunity, but within the price points and the ASPs that Sephora stands for. You cannot suddenly become 1/4 the price, because that is not Sephora.
Mm-hmm. Right. So are we launching a separate website or a separate app for Sephora? Because I think from what I understand at this point of time, we don't have a separate app to do it. We
are doing it today through our multi-brand app, and we are working with global, the way Sephora works is the digital front end of the retail store is like the offline retail store. There is a certain SOP structure and way it works. So we would work with Sephora Global. If that storefront has to come to India, we'd have to work closely with them and bring it, which discussions and efforts we will be making in the quarters to come.
Got it. What percentage of our sales is online in Sephora at present?
Right now it is just low double digits. It's between 10 to 15%, but it's ramping up, as Shailesh said. The year before last it was negligible. So it's become material last year, and we are hoping this year we have quite a bold plan to grow it significantly this year.
All right. Yeah. That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhijeet Kundu from Antique Stock Broking. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. So my first question was on US Polo. What would be the salience of kidswear in US Polo, and how has been the performance here? Looking at the kind of growth that kidswear has in the country, US Polo can see a good amount of good significant growth there. So during the quarter also, what we have said is innerwear and footwear have grown by 30% and 11%. But if you have to look at kidswear, then how has been the growth? And what is the way ahead for US Polo?
See, in our two brands, mainly USPA and another more premium brand, Tommy Hilfiger, we have a very well-developed kids line, and both do fairly good contribution to the business. As far as US Polo is concerned, it's already a leading player in the kids business in all the kids-focused shops, and it accounts for a fairly close to double-digit number in our own stores also. We do large business of boys line in US Polo. There's opportunity to grow the girls line of business in US Polo. So we have plans, and in fact in the starting comments I had said that we want to grow the adjacent categories, and I had also mentioned kids wear. It's definitely a focus area for us, because we see a power of US Polo, and the brand pull it has for even kids lines. It's very strong, and we have very strong demand coming from our partners for the children's wear. So you will see increasing energy. You will see a little more action in children's wear from our side in times to come.
Okay. And so how has been the performance during the year? I mean, during FY21, how has been the performance of kids wear within US Polo?
Actually, there are different phases of the children's wear demand. So when the unlock was happening last year in August, September is when the final unlock 4 happened. At that point of time, we saw the kids wear business had come out fast, because kids grow in size and they change size faster. So among the lockdown, we saw both online and offline. First few segment that picked up along with the open footwear was children's wear, and we did very good business in that phase. And after that, it has stabilized to the normal level of business. But as we grow US Polo further in online and further in smaller tier towns in India, we see children's wear will be a key part of that strategy.
Okay. And my second question was on, you have seen very significant growth in online revenue, digital sales. But apart from the partner sites, the sales which are happening on your own website, there is one issue that normally comes up with the return ratio. So which typically retailers are trying to mitigate the impact. How are you planning to manage that? I mean, just trying to understand the overall system.
As far as the return of stock in the online channel is concerned, so we see now.com has a process on return mechanism, and I don't have offhand all the details with me, but I am aware that the percentage of return that we were getting from now.com has significantly reduced in the last 3 months. So our efforts have been to make sure that return is managed well, and maybe I think Kulin can throw a little more light on that question of the return management on the now.com. Kulin, can you?
Question, please.
Kulin, now we're talking about the stock return process in now.com. Consumer
What
return?
about it? Yeah, can I understand the question?
Yeah, essentially what I was trying to get a handle on so what happens in online revenues. A lot of concerns are there on return ratio, because across the board, typically the understanding is that return ratios are in the region of 25-30%. So every time it's from your partner website, it's fine, but when it comes to your own website, mitigating the return ratio or
yeah, so the way it is managed is that first of all you have to assume that the return is going to come in because it's a part of the business model. So whenever we talk about net sales in our own business, we actually net it for the return provision. So it is pre-provided. We would actually only show 65 to 70% of the sales as the book sales. And then on how do you efficiently manage the return, the world is becoming more and more sophisticated, where you try and take the returns locally, reprocess them and get them back into, sellable state as fast as you can. We are making efforts to make that journey faster and faster. So in the earlier model, everything would have to come back to the central warehouse. We are now moving to a model where we reprocess it in the state level itself and get it back into retail stores quickly. So we are still optimizing that, but as far as revenue recognition is always net of the return provision.
Okay. Because there is a typical cost to it. I mean, every time it is returned, there is a logistic cost.
When we put logistics cost, it is built in largely almost in an online model. 50% of the cost is the return logistics cost. Even though only 30% returns come, the cost of returns are higher than the cost of forward, and that is also built into the margin model. So that's a part of the logistics cost. But the good part of an omni model is that since you deliver from stores, you have a lot more close delivery. And over time, we will have a lot more close return. What that means is in-state return and in-state delivery. As that keeps going up, the percentage logistics costs keep coming down.
Right. Got it. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nishit Rathi from CWC. Please go ahead.
Just to clarification, you said you're targeting an inventory turn rate of around 2.5 times. I'm assuming you're talking 2.5 times COGS, right?
Yeah, COG to COG. Yes.
COG. So that means
we've seen some, sometimes some people take sales to the COG, but we are talking about COG to COG. That's the right way to look at it.
No, that is fair. So I'm just trying to understand. So you're basically saying that, whatever, you're basically talking of a 4 to 5 times sales number in inventory.
Yeah, you have to double it.
That is exactly. That's roughly exact. That is point number one. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Second was, if I understood it right, in Sephora, what we are basically saying is we are going to sell on now.com, which is our own platform, and we are going to have storefronts in all the marketplaces. That could be Nykaa, that could be Myntra, that could be anywhere, right? Is that understanding correct?
No, Nishit. Okay. Sephora globally is EBO format. In some select markets, they also do third party. So we would work with them to ensure that we keep making Sephora goods available elsewhere. I think the gentleman that had asked the question was to say, in addition to a multi-brand storefront, would there be a Sephora-only storefront? And that was the discussion we were having. I think on third-party marketplaces, in certain markets, they have done that. And, as the markets in India evolve, we will work with our partners to see how we can optimize the availability of that 60% exclusive product, that Sephora sells.
But today, basically, we only sell Sephora online primarily through our own platform, right? Is that correct?
We only sell it today through now.com, and the discussion we were having was, Sephora.com.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, that will be the last question for today. I will now hand the conference over to Mr. Ankit Arora for closing comments.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the call today. If any of you have any further questions which have not been answered on the call, please feel free to reach out to me, and I would be happy to answer them offline. Thanks for your time, and look forward to speak to you, everyone.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Arvind Fashions Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.